Call this regular meeting of Grand Forks City Council to order. And the first item of business is to amend the agenda and remove the go in camera decision at the end. Correct? And a motion to adopt the agenda as modified. Councillor Wyers, Councillor Kendel, all those in favor. We have minutes from 3 different meetings. Special meeting minutes of January the 27th. A motion to adopt. Councillor O'Doherty, Councillor Kendel, all those in favor. And the Committee of the Whole, January 27th meeting. Motion to adopt. Councillor Kendel, Councillor O'Doherty, all those in favor. And the regular meeting of the 27th of January. Motion to adopt. Councillor Kendel, Councillor Wyers, all those in favor. All right, we are down to petitions and delegations, and we don't normally have delegations at our regular meeting, but we are going to have one tonight or this afternoon. Council has to vote unanimously to have audience participation, and there are some caveats that Council had discussed earlier that I would like to get on the table. So can we wrap it into a single motion that would include that we involve the audience in the participation in the discussion and put on whatever expectations we have? Okay, so the policy in terms of delegations is 10 minutes for presentation and similar time for questions. The Council would like to extend that this evening, and maybe one of the councillors, what did we agree on? It was going to be 20 minutes?
We were going to go 20 minutes,
roughly, yeah.
And an opportunity for each representative to speak once.
Right, okay. Councillor Wyers, thank you. So what we're proposing is that we go for 20 minutes, that we give each delegate member an opportunity to speak once, and then if there's more time in the 20 minutes, that we roll it around for second comments. And I would ask that motion to be put forward by Council. Councillor Wyers, seconded by Councillor Kendel. Any discussion on that? Councillor Wyers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, and as per our bylaw, that 20 minutes does not include the time discussed, that we are discussing it.
Well, so 20 minutes for presentation and then questions?
Yeah, but whatever we discuss, whatever questions we ask is not included within that 20 minutes.
Okay, but for the sake of the presentation by the delegation?
Yeah, separately, sure.
Okay. Ready for the vote? All those in favor? Carried. All right, Mr. Treveri, are you the spokesperson for this?
Yes, I am.
And so those are the rules that Council has set forward. I hope they're acceptable to you.
Very, very acceptable, because I will not take up the full 20 minutes, so there'll be more time for full discussion.
Okay, thank you. The floor is yours.
Your Worship, Mayor Taylor, members of the Council, I'm here this afternoon on behalf of the committee for a more democratic process and a very significant number of Grand Forks citizens. Significant because over 500 citizens signed our petition, which represents approximately half the number of the voters that voted in the last municipal election. Only had a 38% turnout in the last municipal election, and there was basically a little over 1,000 voters that turned out at the election. I'd like to thank Council for accepting the names we submitted this morning and including them as signatories to our petition. It's much appreciated. I also speak for the many others who support our views but did not have access to or opportunity to sign our petition, like Gary Trinan, a Grand Forks resident who phoned me last Thursday all the way from California to express his support, and I believe emailed Council in regard to this matter. Unfortunately, the urgency of the matter and the small window of time between last council meeting and this council meeting made it impossible for us to canvass the entire community. It is on behalf of these aforementioned citizens that I am requesting that you consider rescinding your motion to install residential water meters, adhere to the timeline that was mailed out with the utility bills, do not commence meter installation until 2015, hold town hall meetings in 2014, focusing on open and honest discussion as to the pros and cons of meter installation. Make water meter installation a campaign issue for the 2014 election. Hold a referendum during the election, allowing the citizens of Grand Forks to decide the issue. We, the committee, and the people that signed the petition are requesting this action for the following reasons. City Council has articulated that the decision to install water meters was based on a desire to conserve water, thus protecting the aquifer. Advice from professional staff and consultants, and a request from senior government. Furthermore, council members have made the assertion that there is a widespread support within the community for water meter installation. It is our contention that council has failed to fully apprise the citizens of Grand Forks as to the rationale for your decision. It has not explained how meters are going to protect the aquifer. Consultant reports have not been shared with the public, nor has anyone seen a written dictum from any level of government requesting council to install water meters. There has been little or no effort on the part of council to provide an opportunity for discussion, reaction, or input. The only public meeting dedicated solely to water meter installation was the Gallery 2 open house, and it was held after the fact. It was not a forum for discussion. The decision had already been made. Contrary to council's assertion of widespread support, we found, pardon the pun, very little thirst within the community for meters. In fact, among the approximately 100 citizens that I personally approached, only a handful wouldn't sign our petition. An overwhelming majority were not hesitant to sign, and many were very eager to express their views. There's a feeling in our community that this was a closed-door decision made in the guise of protecting the aquifer. Many feel that it is a hidden tax, a money grab, to pay for a broken infrastructure that has suffered many years of indifference and neglect at the hands of this council and previous councils. Others believe it's a ploy by senior governments in cooperation with big business or vice versa to turn water, a life necessity and a human right, into a commodity to be bought and sold on the open market to the highest bidder. If today's pressure is to install meters, when will the push for privatization come? They ask, how long will it be before private companies run community utilities on a full cost recovery plus profit basis? Already there is evidence of this in our country. Our federal government has tied up $1.8 billion to the so-called P3, or Private-Public Partnership Fund. The fund has been set aside for grants accessible to communities for large infrastructure projects. The catch, however, is that the community must partner up with a private corporation as a means of accessing that particular fund. In 2011, the citizens of Abbotsford, through a referendum, halted a $291 million Stave Lake water project, a proposed new water source for the city, because the citizens of the community wisely didn't want to turn their domestic water over to private interests. There are many that feel that well-intentioned councils have been beguiled into believing that municipal water users are water wasters, where in fact, according to Environment Canada, municipal water withdrawal in the whole of Canada is 9.3%, less than 10%. And most municipal water use is not consumptive, it's restorative. In other words, it goes back into the aquifer. The lion's share of water use and waste in Canada is on thermal power generation, industrial agriculture, large commercial industry, and resource extraction. Many citizens believe that senior governments see no problem in putting limits on municipal water, yet give it away to the real wasters and polluters in our In our province, British Columbia, millions of liters of water are extracted by international bottling companies at no cost. The oil and gas industries pay absolutely nothing for massive water takings. Other industries pay a one-time license for unlimited use. If these are misconceptions, ladies and gentlemen, on the part of Grand Forks citizens, you, our council, must provide the time and opportunity to dispel them. I would be remiss, Mr. Mayor, if I didn't express the concerns of a young family that have 3 young children and generally take in 2 border Bruin billets. They quickly signed my petition, or our petition, sorry. It was obvious to them that they consumed much more water than the retired widow lady that lived across the street. How fair is it going to be to meter that young family's water? Mr. Mayor, I would do a disservice to the hundreds of students that suffered through my high school social studies classes if I didn't mention the reason why one individual wouldn't sign our petition. The individual is a city employee who stated that they weren't allowed to sign the petition and weren't even allowed to talk about it. I hope I don't have to point out to council, as I so often did to my students, that freedom of expression is a cornerstone of our democratic society. It is a fundamental right enjoyed by all Canadians, stated clearly in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and embedded in the Canadian Constitution. Surely, Mr. Mayor, council doesn't impose gag orders on its employees. I would hope they didn't. Another misguided gentleman wouldn't sign our petition because he was against referendums. He said a city councillor told him money referendums always fail because no one wants to pay higher taxes. I pointed out to the gentleman that he was misinformed, and that in fact, during the last municipal election, the election of 2011, when the incumbent council was elected, there were 2 money referendum questions posed to the voters. Both passed with wide margins. The first gave council authority to borrow $1.3 million to upgrade water supply for emergency fire protection. If it was emergent at that particular time, I'm just wondering, Mr. Mayor, why that council failed to go ahead with getting our water supply up to speed so that it could deal with emergent situations. The other referendum was to borrow $4.2 million for the capital renewal of road, water, and sewer infrastructure. Is this a community that is unwilling to pay for the necessities. Let's be honest with the public, Mr. Mayor. Furthermore, just this morning at the Committee of the Whole meeting, we were shocked to learn that in December of 2012, the provincial government turned down Council's application for a tax fund grant to install water meters. Council led the public to believe that the tax money they are using was specifically targeted for meter installation, whereas that doesn't appear to be the case at all. At this morning's meeting, Mr. Allen expressed the urgency to install meters immediately so that we may be considered to receive infrastructure grants that are going to be available in the immediate future. Realistically, Mr. Mayor, how much money is going to be available to our small community when the infrastructure in the large metropolitan cities are in such a state of disrepair and their councils are hollering for aid in sums of billions of dollars? At the same time, the finance ministers at both levels of senior government are promising balanced budgets. Are we going to waste $1.3 million plus and then find out that we have to still fix the infrastructure on our own dime? In conclusion, Mr. Mayor, we believe that in approving our request, the community will benefit, because local government is the level of government that can best engage our country's citizens in participatory democracy. Water meter installation has certainly piqued the interest of the citizens of our community. Town hall meetings and the 2014 election campaign are perfect venues for an open and honest discussion of the issue. More candidates might be attracted to run for office, and there would certainly be a higher voter turnout. Having a say in a referendum vote undoubtedly would provide one with the satisfaction of being a full participant in this democratic process. We believe that by not approving our request, the results will be growing cynicism within the community and a continued feeling that one's opinions don't count. It will further entrench the belief that once in office, elected officials have little regard for the views of ordinary citizens. Conversely, elected officials will continue to perpetuate the myth that citizens are apathetic and really don't care. In conclusion, we request that you, the Council of the City of Grand Forks, our Council, listen to our request and adopt a resolution to rescind the motion to install meters, provide opportunities for us to become better informed on the issue, show us that democracy is alive and well in the City of Grand Forks, allow us, the taxpayers, to make an informed decision through a referendum vote. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So, questions for Mr. Treveri? From anyone, actually. We've involved the audience as well. There's so many there, Mr. Treveri. I could maybe answer one of them in terms of the emergency water supply for the West End. I was really excited to hear that instead of building another reservoir on top of Saddle Lake Mountain on that side of town, that in fact if we could put in electrical generating units by our pumps, and that we could control those with a SCADA system the way we have been, that we could actually meet the requirements for peak supply and pressure and volume without having to go as far as spending the millions of dollars on a new reservoir. And so that's exactly what we've gone ahead with in terms of fixing that East End water issue. So we were able to do it very economically because of better engineering
And I'm sure
reports.
that the citizens would appreciate that if it would have been communicated to individuals like myself, and I believe that I try to keep abreast of what's going on. I wasn't aware that you had taken measures.
Right. Did you attend any of the meetings for the sustainability plan?
No, I didn't.
And that
I may have been away at that.
dealt extensively with water metering. The other thing in terms of borrowing the money to do 68th and 22nd Street, that project at about 4.5 million would incur a 12+% increase in taxes every year from now on to fund that without the 1/3 from the province and 1/3 from the feds that we are looking for. As far as the government not giving you things in writing, as you know from political experience at the federal and provincial level, they're very cautious in terms of what they put in writing when something is as clear as this is. I sat in meetings with other staff members and councillors and was told clearly that if we want the 1/3 from the province or 1/3 from the feds, we can't afford to fix our own boat in this community. We've got too much of an infrastructure deficit at this point to rely on the taxation of our community. And I have to tell you, when we campaigned on that in the last election, and it was overwhelmingly supported by the community, we made it clear we're not going to proceed unless we get government grants. We wanted to go to government and say, we've got our money, where's yours? But I wasn't in a position, nor I think council, in pressing this in the last election. We weren't saying to people, give us the ability to borrow and we're going to go out there and spend that money. We can't afford to do that in this community. So we need to move this direction. That's all I'm going to say, and then I'll open it up for your delegates. And Councillor Shagan would be after that.
Sorry.
We have Donna here that's after.
Mr. Mayor, thank you for sharing that information. Now, I wonder if the people knew that, and say we discussed this in an open house, whether without water meters, they would be motivated to conserve water, to give us time to collect the money we need to replace our infrastructure. I have a feeling that they would try hard.
Okay, and in response to that, we have been in a conservation training mode for at least 2 years now, where we have been through the Environment Committee and through various other initiatives attempting to put in water controls and initiate environmental controls on this that would mean that we could move slower in this direction. But in fact, we're not really getting a whole lot of change by educating people. People are used to spending 720 liters average per day, which in fact is way out of line with, and something you asked this morning, similar communities to ours with similar kind of demographics, which we've looked at, and we're still way outside the norm.
We're number one.
I did research Creston.
You're in control of your delegates, Mr. Trevoli?
Sure, yeah.
So
Go
Creston
ahead.
does get more precipitation than we do. And yeah, there is a chart that talks about the Okanagan use of water, and they do on average use more than we do. And we use, I found an article that talked about Kamloops, and they use 700 liters a day, and we use 720 some. So they were comparable, and I could find you the website links if you like later. But I would be willing to volunteer to work with you somehow on education ideas. This is actually, I have been interested in conservation and brainstorming on not just water, but in other areas. I've thought about things that could be exciting and fun. But I also think if you appeal to the people and they realize the seriousness of this issue, that they might be on side and voluntarily be interested.
Okay, Councillor Wyers, can I beg your forgiveness for a second here? No, I'll pass. You go ahead.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay, I just have a few questions here for you, Mr.
Oh,
Trevoli.
yeah, that's why I stayed here.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
I anticipated there'd be some questions directed to me.
Yes. As I made clear earlier, and over the past 6 years, I am opposed to the universal installation of water meters. I do believe that people should have the right to have water meters if they so choose, as other communities do voluntary installations. Castlegar, Kelowna, Vancouver, they all do. And it seems to work. They seem to get their grant money. However, my views differ from the rest of council. So my question is, you have your, therefore, we the undersigned citizens of Grand Forks petition council to, where is it here? Number 5, hold a referendum during the election allowing the citizens of Grand Forks to decide the issue. Other BC municipalities have taken the same issue to referendum. What would you want a referendum question to look like? Yes, we want them. No, we don't. Because in doing so, you would remove the option of voluntary installations, right?
Well, I mean, obviously you could word it that way, but compulsory water metering, we would like that to be put to the people. Okay, and basically, just if I could just, I really don't want to engage in a debate that should have occurred before, long before this meeting, all the way in terms of the process. That's what I'm really concerned about, is the process by which council brought about this. Way back in '99, if I could just 2 more minutes, okay? Way back in '99, when council first started talking about it, I wrote a letter to council asking council to really be careful and weigh the pros and cons and make sure that you consult the people, okay? Why do we want water meters? Why do we need water meters? And there wasn't even a response to my letter at all. And I've been waiting and waiting and waiting to see, when, on the agenda, when are they going to be putting this question to the council in regard to water meters. I just assumed, right, that there was going to be time for open discussion. I was waiting for open discussion. I looked on the web to see what the consultant reports were saying, and I couldn't find them there. There was just no way. Okay, because they actually, one came on February 4th, just recently. Okay, now something I want to share with you about water, the residential water use, and that I'm guilty of using way too much water. My wife and I walk down our street. We've been here since 1972. There are 3 homes on our street that have children. The rest of us are either widowed or a widow, or a retired couple on that particular street. When in the 1980s, when my kids were growing up, we counted that there were approximately 30 people on that street. There were no water restrictions at that particular time. I'm sure that in my household anyways, we consumed a lot more water when my teenage girls were at home than we do now, all right? I'm not speaking for myself. I'm a gardener. I like to keep my lawn green. I like to keep my flower gardens growing. I like to keep my vegetable. I have a huge vegetable garden. However, I can probably afford an extra $1 on my water. But I'm speaking about the other people, and I can't see how our consumption with our population going down here in Grand Forks, I can't see how our consumption be as high as you people insist it is, because you have absolutely no way. And then you're going to say, well, Mr. Troy, put on a meter, and then we'll know how much water you're really using. But you don't know how much water is not reaching those households through broken infrastructure. You haven't got a clue. Okay? So population's going down. We have a senior community, right? We're not attracting young people here because we simply don't have the jobs, right? And yet, water consumption's going up. I don't understand it. What's going to happen when you find out, after installing meters, after spending $1.3 million to install the meters, what's going to happen when you see that you establish a particular rate, and gee whiz, the people in Grand Forks aren't using that much water. What are we going to do? We can't, the money that we're taking in isn't going to be enough to repair and maintain that infrastructure.
Can I stop you right there?
Yeah,
Because it's a
okay,
perfect spot. No, Frank,
but I would have liked to have had this discussion
but
long before this.
let me pick up on something you left
Yeah.
off on.
Yeah.
We would like to see considerable community input into establishing the levels. So I would ask that we take the names of volunteers who would sit on a committee that would look at water rates in the full billing period. So in that period where you're hooked in and it's telling you how much you're using, but if we had large community input into how we establish those water rates, I think it would give a lot more comfort to people that we're not trying to take money, but in fact we're trying to establish
I would gladly volunteer to sit on that committee. However, I will sit on that committee. I will volunteer right now. You can put my name down. Put my name down. I will sit on the committee once you pose this question as a referendum question. Allow the citizens of Grand Forks to decide whether they want water meters or not. If my fellow citizens say, yes, after you've educated us, you've convinced us that we need water meters, I'll be the first one to sit on that committee. I think that's actually.
I'm just going to sit here because there's no more seats.
Go ahead,
Okay, Councillor Vershegen, thank you for mentioning the idea about voluntary meters. From my reading, I read, though, in some communities, that they actually charge less for the people who are metered than otherwise. So if ever that was going to be something that we considered, I wouldn't necessarily want it to be done that way. So that would be concern in that, from what I read. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for bringing up the Sustainable Community Plan. I had the fortune of reading the updated version this time. I had read the first one a few years ago. And I love the idea of being, Grand Forks being known for its focus on sustainability, which was mentioned in the plan. And that's important to me as well. This morning, and also in the panels, it's very clearly said that water metering program for all residential users is recommended by the sustainability plan. Now, when I look at it, I see on page 69, it says, quote, the following table lists implementation items and indicator metrics for each of the 10 guiding principles in the plan. Okay, so, and then under there's the water meters are listed in the table, and it also says, quote, staff and council are not required to pursue any of the listed items, and water meters is on there. It clearly says that these are tangible options. So to me, this is not a strong endorsement of compulsory residential water meters. Okay. Also in the Sustainable Community Plan, 2 questions it addresses near the beginning are, quote, how can we attract young working families to the community? So from my thinking, families have more people to bathe, wash food for, wash dishes for, do laundry for, and thus they would likely use more water than our aging population, who might be widowed or be living as couples. So I'm not sure that water meters address...
So just one little point there, that the use of water domestically inside your house is a very, very small amount of the water usage that we're talking about here. It's a minor percentage. I won't try to pick out the percentage, but a very, very minor part. So having 4 people in a family or 2 people in a family makes virtually no difference. Mr. Allen.
Mr. Mayor, through my experience, I went through a community where we installed water meters, and there was the same process going on. I had a half-acre parcel of property in the arid, semi-arid area of the Okanagan. My water bill went up $40 based on that, and I have 2 daughters, a female cat and a female dog, and my wife and myself in the home. So my bill went up $40, a half acre, and I planted a whole bunch of trees in my property to beautify the property. I did a little bit of xeriscaping. I planted some grass. I followed the metrics. A couple, my kids would all be out playing with the water hose and doing some things like that. My consumption during quarters 1, which would be from January through March, and quarters 4, which would be October through December, my bill was so small and insignificant that it didn't represent anything. When we went outside in the summer months, when I started to irrigate my yard, that's when I saw my bill came up. But on the average, it went up by $40 in total. The other thing, that I had one customer come to me, an older gentleman in Peachland. He said to me, same concern. He was at a council meeting, and he said to me his situation. He was a single person. I said, sir, it's not about the internal consumption in your house, it's about what you do outside. He said, well, I don't do any irrigation in my yard, or don't do anything like that. And I said, I guarantee you, I'll bet you a dinner that your bill goes down. And he said to me, you're on. And I said, at a nice restaurant too. And he took me up on that bet, and he lost the bet. His bill did go down. Then he came to me about that, and his wife had passed, so then we didn't get the opportunity to have our dinner. But that was an example, Mr. Mayor, of that piece where he came out and he was so concerned about it, but he came to the resolution that it was correct in that respect. Your point about internal consumption, that's a fragment about the water consumption that we use in our community. It's all about what we use in our yards, and it's about understanding how to apply the water properly in our yards. And so anyway, that's just my experience.
Thank you for
Back to
sharing
you.
that. Let's see.
Would you sit on the rate review?
I would like to address this first, okay? Oh yeah, in one of the documents that you provided, that you made available, it did say that you will start, or it's recommended to keep the rates low at first, the first year. And I also know that if I was a resident, and getting, say, the mock billing, I would probably be scared to at first as it's implemented. So the stats that I've seen are in the beginning, and people are afraid and they're wondering how much water they're going to use, and they get nervous. So I understand why it looks like their water drops in the beginning. I understand that. But I wanted to just talk about the Sustainable Community Plan. But actually, Mr. Allen, what you said, there is support for that in the GF Water Demand Management Action Plan, where actually the focus, according to Urban Systems, would be to decrease the outdoor water usage. So thank you for bringing that part up. But about the Sustainable Community Plan, the other question that's in there is, how can we encourage local food production and consumption? So reducing outdoor water will be a key objective. And the council has suggested something like garden credits. But frankly, I think that makes gardening more complicated. And I think we could be more clearly supportive of gardening in the way we set things up. Okay?
That's why I think you would be ideal to sit on this committee.
Okay, I haven't told you about my ideas for encouraging people to conserve water without including water meters yet, but anyways, I'd like to talk about the other plan, the GF Water, Grand Forks Water Demand Management and Action Plan, if that's all right.
Well, actually, this is Mr. Treveri's committee at this point that
Is
we're
that all
hearing.
right, then?
This,
Okay.
remember,
As long as we allow enough time,
Okay.
I'm sure
I'll try to go
there's going
faster
be
then.
a lot of
Okay.
questions.
Okay.
Other
Okay.
people would like to talk, so
Okay, I will.
we have to share that time.
Okay.
And I'm sorry that I took a little longer than I
So,
anticipated.
Donna, can you speak up?
Louder?
We can't hear you.
oh, sorry. Okay. As part of, in the document, Grand Forks Water Demand Management and Action Plan, as part of BC's Living Water Smart Plan for adaptation to climate change, growing population, and a vibrant economy, it is calling for a 33% reduction in water use by 2020. That's in the Urban Systems document, 2011, January. That's, I think, the most recent document that was given to us to look at. And they talk about the development rate in Grand Forks is low, water supply is adequate, economic benefits on their own to take conservation measures, such as broad-based metering, so cost recovery, data collection and control, and my understanding is you brought up the finances of supporting infrastructure, right, replacement. So it says again in page 9, water supply is very good as the aquifer is highly productive. Page 6. Now this is where I have some confusion. Page 6, it says apparent losses in Grand Forks are important but are not currently a major contributor to losses. And they define apparent losses as water demands that are delivered and ultimately consumed but not accounted for. For example, meter inaccuracies and say meters that read consistently low or unauthorized connections. But on page 10, when they're getting close to the conclusions, it says that large apparent losses must be located and reduced. So there's a bit of a contradiction, and I have some confusion regarding that action plan.
Well, we have an action plan on that. We are identifying those areas where we think there would be leakage from our water system. We're defining the perimeters of it, and we're measuring it, and then they get rated in terms of how important it is for us to go into the ground and fix those things. So, you know, I think that clearly the whole plan that we've had in terms of infrastructure has emphasized finding the weak points in our system and targeting them for repairs. So yes, there is some leakage, but we certainly can't see that at this point affecting the mock billing. We would hope that we can identify any situation where a homeowner seems to be either high or low in the system.
But if by their definition, they put leakage in a different heading. So they're in one place they're saying this is low, in another place they're saying high. Maybe you can take a look at that. I'll show you later if you want. It's not referring to leakage in that section.
Mr. Mayor, in referring to that would be terminology that the engineering would be doing, because I believe that's about a 20-page report, and I think that all the information flows together. So by dissecting components out of it, it's very hard for us to articulate the differences right now. We'd have to have the engineer here to explain those things, because they are the professional engineer.
But my layman's approach to it is we're not going to tolerate loss of water.
Well, we can't tolerate loss of water. We have to determine where the losses are, because, like for instance, when you audit your system, you have to find out where your losses are. Once you calculate what's going into the homes, there's a difference of the loss in between there, and you have to calculate those losses. Those losses can be big amounts of money to the community when it comes to those things. So for instance, where we've done our water audits in the past, we found $100,000 worth of water we were losing, so that and controlled the water rates increasing over the next several years. Council was able to utilize that. The ability for you to quantify that and audit your water system, you know, you're using subjective numbers. You're using right now is the best engineering practices that they have, but you have to have all the data to really get there, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm almost done. I'm wondering if you've done any research into the implications of mass pricing of water, similar to what Frank said, that if we put a price on water, it's likely that corporations would consider helping us out with infrastructure upgrading in exchange for water rights. I'm concerned what other councils might be tempted to do. The infrastructure for pay-per-use would be all set up for a corporation and easy for them to use, and of course they would have to charge us more so that they could provide the required profit for their shareholders. And then there's issue. Did you know that the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund have been pushing countries to privatize their resources, including lakes, streams, and reservoirs? And fresh water is increasing in demand, and it's a wise investment for corporations because it is an essential human need. So pricing water could be open doors to privatization, free trade, water on the futures market. It's even possible that we couldn't afford our own water going down this direction. We wouldn't be guiding the price of it. So I just wanted you to please consider that.
And I think Councillor Kendel made a good point the other day in terms of the fact that we're not selling the water.
Well,
we're not pricing
when there's charts that say how much we charge for water compared to other countries. There is that in comparing Canada to other places. I can try to find that for you if you want.
But I think the point was that we charge for pumping it, for chlorinating it, for delivering it, and for having the infrastructure available to do that. But the actual water itself is not what we're concerned about. We need to gather enough money to pay for the system.
I suspect that that's how other countries also figure out their calculations similarly. And here's something a little different. In the interest of transparency, taxpayers would like to know what the steps involved in the metering project. Roughly how much have urban systems been paid in water metering consulting fees? Do you have a rough estimate?
I could find that out for you. I don't think we have that at our fingertips.
Mr. Mayor, no, I would have to go back to, I believe there's a resolution that you have there from 1999. All the work that was done prior to that, there was other engineering firms involved. The cost of them coming to present the reports too that the city hired them to do. So If council wanted a resolution for that, we could go back into the archives, but because of the fire at City Hall, our archives are off-site right now, so it would require extensive amount of research from city staff, but if it pleased council, we could obtain that information, but it would take quite a bit of time to get there.
So it's too hard to guesstimate that
Just
right now?
an adjoining question in regard to that. Is Urban Systems involved in the tendering process? Because I see that their name was on one of the addendums that went out, extending the timeline for the tenders to submit their quotes. Are they involved in that process? And are they going to also be involved in overseeing the installation, the meter installation?
Mr. Allen.
So, Mr. Mayor, the tendering process, the expression of interest that's out right now, Urban Systems is handling that piece, and then they'll be handling the actual tendering of the service installation. Once the project is turned over to the city, we would manage the contract from there. The information that's collected will form part of Urban Systems' overall information knowledge that they have of this for the city, providing information to our demand management and utilizing that information moving forward. So yes, Urban Systems is involved, but once the project has been awarded to the contractor, it would be turned over to the city to manage that.
And in fact, Urban Systems is one of the consultants used in order to implement the water meters, right? That recommended that you should implement the water meters. Did they not?
Yes, they're not bidding on putting them.
No, I'm not saying that they're bidding, but they in fact have continued to work for the city after the recommendation has come out. Right?
Yes.
They're engaged in the tendering process right now, right? And they also will be engaged in selection of the company that is going to do the work, right? Don't you think that there is a little bit of conflict of interest in that particular thing? Shouldn't the council have said, okay, you've recommended the water meters, we've made a decision to go ahead with the water meters, someone else is going to look after the rest of it?
Mr. Mayor, in that respect, number one of the most ethical firms in the business right now is Urban Systems.
I'm not questioning
when it comes down to, Mr. Mayor, the other piece, Mr. Mayor, is the component related to the piece. Once a project has been tendered and it's handed over to the city, they will only make a recommendation. That recommendation will be referred to Council's purchasing policy, which is a policy the Council has set based on purchasing requirements to ensure the protection of the community assets. So that policy will be reviewed at that time, Mr. Mayor. Urban Systems would only be doing a review of the recommendations that was basically the criteria that's outlined in the RFP process.
Right.
But you're still paying for that recommendation.
Yes, we are.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Or are they doing that free?
Process, the tenderings are open publicly
Open publicly, yes.
by the consultant.
They're opened by the consultants. Actually, the tender opening for that would be here at City Hall with the corporate officer present. And according to the policy, the mayor and council members are available to sit in on that meeting. It's an open public tendering, so all the contractors that bid on it would be able to sit in on that meeting as well.
So any of the people here would be welcome to attend that.
If we knew that there was an appetite for that, we could arrange for that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, for a public.
if there was a request for proposal and then the different contractors were presenting something and the public would be involved, or at what stage?
So, Mr. Mayor, the expressions of interest are the process for expression of qualification. So, what we do is we go out to make sure that we're getting qualified companies that can meet all of the needs for the delivery of the metering installation, based on the needs, based on all the reports that have been presented. So, what happens is they present their expression of qualifications, and then we go out to seek pricing from those the companies, whatever, 2, 3, 5, 10, whoever that are qualified to do it. So we don't get companies that are maybe less than desirably qualified, that don't have bonding abilities, that will basically present some challenges to the city financially without having the proper securities in place.
Right, the risk.
And for clarity, Urban Systems is not going to be managing a project manager of the Grand Forks City Council.
That's correct,
will
they're
be?
not.
Or will you be? Or who will be?
Our engineer,
Yeah.
Sasha.
Expert. Okay. Okay. Thank you for answering the questions. I want to open up to other people.
So I'm just checking out this, and we have 55 minutes under our belt here. So, Mr. Treveri, if you could control your speakers, maybe?
Trying to move quickly here.
Okay.
Okay. So my name is Julia Butler, 8145 Riverside Drive, and I was involved with the process of collecting the names for the petitions. And I just want to say actually what a blessing it was to be out there amongst the community and to meet the people of the community and see them draw together on this, and the kindness of the people and their willingness to join together on something. It was really nice to be involved in that process. And I also respect Council's position that, you know, Ms. Wyers, you said that you're very interested in protecting water for future generations at the last meeting, and you know what, I think we have a lot in common. We're just going about it in different ways. And Mr. O'Doherty said that he wanted to, that he represents the taxpayers of Grand Forks when he sits in that seat. And today you have a chance to be a real hero for the taxpayers of Grand Forks. Didn't meet you, sir, at the last meeting, but I think you all have your hearts in the right place. Maybe there's just been some misinformation. And so I just have a couple points to address here today. In regards to the last council meeting, Donna asked a question for us if our sewer rates would be tied to our water consumption. And I just want to show you the response that we were given to that question and ask if you believe that that was an accurate representation of the facts. I am not a technical person by any means. So this is the best I can do.
John.
So this is Mr. Allen from the last meeting. His response to will our sewer rates be tied to our water consumption?
Are they on? Oh, yeah. Hit the sound.
So I'm not sure what point you're making, but could you paraphrase? what
Sure,
you-
I can paraphrase. It's unfortunate we can't hear it exactly, but he said with regards to that in the United States there are some things going on that aren't consistent with what we will see happening here in Grand Forks. And it was just a very brief answer. So I'd just like to ask Council, is that a fair representation that there's just a few things going on in the United States that aren't going to be consistent with what's happening here in Grand Forks?
I know very little about tying water rates to sewer rates. Can anyone?
I can speak to that from when I lived in Saskatchewan, and it was a portion of the water that went through your house was, but whether that's a policy here in BC or whatever be a policy here in Grand Forks, I can't comment on that. But
I can actually. I was looking on the internet, as anybody's able to do, and when Mr. Taylor was mayor, this bylaw was effective in March of 2011. And these are the sewer rates that are effective right now for commercial properties and everybody in Grand Forks that are already on water meters. And their sewer rates, it says here, sewer rates charged per 1/3 of cubic meter of metered water. So right now already in Grand Forks, our commercial customers' sewer rates are based on their metered water. That's what it said online. That's what I got online. That's your own city bylaw. So I imagine that you would follow your own
So are you
practices.
suggesting that with metering that we should charge sewer rates relative to your metered use of water?
That's what you're already doing with commercial customers.
Mr. Mayor, when it comes to residential allocation for water meter in and then sewer rates out, it's not a calculation that works very well because, most communities have not done that because you simply cannot qualify that. But in an industrial application where they don't put on a discharge meter that uses a lot of water, they have to discharge and that goes into the sewage collection system. Therefore, they would be paying the lion's share of the sewer collection costs for the treatment of that water versus our customers paying for it. But our domestic use internally inside the houses is not appropriate for us to be charging that for consumption. The reason that we're talking about water metering is, and I think you alluded to it earlier, Mr. Mayor, was the amount of water that we use outside in the yards. The only way you could do that would be installing a second meter on every property to give them a credit on the irrigation components, and it would be a calculation nightmare for the organization, and it would create basically immense amount of work that it wouldn't make sense for the city to do that.
Trying to tie those together.
But when you have a large industrial consumer that consumes a lot of water and discharges a lot of water back into the system, you can either charge it to the industrial user or you can spread that amongst all the taxpayers. And I think the idea behind that rate, if I understand it correctly, is to charge it to the industrial user, so the user is paying it that way.
Right, and so on your bylaw here, that's already being done for multi-family dwellings, it says on here. Also, I checked online, and sewer rates are always tied to water rates in most cities. In Surrey, people pay 80% of their water intake for their sewer rates. I just checked that out on Surrey's website this afternoon. Kelowna, I believe, is also based on their water metered intake. It's a pretty common practice, and it's something that's already being done here in Grand Forks. So I would expect that residents of Grand Forks can expect to see a rise in their sewer rates as they have a rise in their water rates. And you know what? You're right, it doesn't make sense, because as you said, it's only a small percentage of water that's going for use in the home. The majority of our water is being used in our yards, so it does not make any sense to tie our sewer rates to our water rates. And I'd like to have a motion from council saying that you do not intend to do that to this people. I'd also like to state that I've looked up the water rates that are already being charged commercially in the city of Grand Forks, and right now water charges are very small, and people that are on these meters say, yeah, their bills have gone down. And if you were to continue to charge these rates for the residential properties as well, you would have a loss in your income for what you're already making to pay the bills for those pumps and the chlorine. So if you're going to do this, you're going to have to raise your rates. I mean, right here it says that on average they're paying 0.105 per cubic meter of water that's used, and then they're paying a bi-monthly fixed charge and capital charge, and a bi-monthly customer charge. So there's 3 charges there, and the numbers just aren't going to add up. You're going to have to raise your rates. And so, like Donna said, you start off with these low rates to get everyone comfortable with it. People in Grand Forks that have meters or advertising say, yeah, water meters are great. Our prices have gone down. But over the years, they're going to keep going up. When I looked at Surrey, they were 0.8 per cubic meter of water used. Kelowna was 0.3 per cubic meter of water. So, I mean, this is a very low rate. It's not going to stay as it is right now. The other thing I wanted to address, which unfortunately the computer isn't working, in the last meeting we asked for a referendum, and Mr. Allen told us that this isn't typically the type of question that goes to referendum, and indeed he has never seen this question posed as a referendum question. Those are pretty much his exact words that were used. Well, it took me 5 minutes online to find out that Kamloops posed this as a referendum question, Roslyn posed this as a referendum question, and I'm very surprised that you would not be aware of that, Mr. Allen. Also, Cranbrook posed this as a referendum question. They wanted to go to referendum for permission to borrow money to install water meters, and it was voted down in Cranbrook as well. So this is typically the type of thing that goes to referendum.
And again, you know, Mr. Allen and I have talked about this, but I would acquiesce to him. In terms of those examples, I think you'll find that most of them, or all of them, were related to borrowing issues, not to metering.
I believe Roslyn and Kamloops was just on the issue of water meters.
Not borrowing money.
Cranbrook was
We
on
changed the line later because they fell to the same rules that you people have fallen to. Gee, if we want infrastructure money, we better put in meters. We need a management system in place because that's the code word that our provincial government uses for water meters.
Water management.
Water management is a code word for water meters. Okay, and so they capitulated, and what we're doing is asking you people not to capitulate.
So we just want the same opportunity as other communities to vote on this issue. Also, Ms. Wyers brought up the City of Castle this morning, that they had a lower than average use of water. And I talked with Neil today at the City of Castle and asked them about their plans to install water meters. I mean, you would think a community with lower than average water use is doing pretty good, but they already do have commercial meters, and he said he wouldn't be surprised if a residential program was in their future. So they don't seem to have an issue with water conservation, so I don't see why they would need meters installed.
I would have to ask them.
This doesn't seem to be an issue of water conservation. I'm just saying this is an issue of buying and selling Canadians water.
Okay. And I'm just saying, at this point we've come to about an hour and 5 minutes, a little over an hour and 10 minutes.
There's a couple more people here.
And Councillor Krog has been patient here. What I'm thinking at this point is that we've got to put a time limit on this at this point. We have a whole house load of people.
I say you rescind your motion until you've heard from all the people.
How many more people would like to speak?
Yeah, if we could have just a show of hands, of individuals that would like to speak on this particular issue.
Yeah.
I think that solves your problem. There are three more individuals. I think it's on three more individuals.
Okay, let me tell you what my game plan
Oh,
is.
there's more out in the hall.
the way up the stairs and upside.
Oh, really?
Well, let's wade through them, but can you keep it really tight and short? Yes.
Name and address.
Yeah, people would
Name
like
and-
to speak, move closer to the mic.
When we talk about comparing the use of water here to the national average, don't compare, you can't come out accurately unless you also compare the precipitation. There, where it's a drier climate, they need more water. So they use more water. You can't compare us to Vancouver. So you have to, if studies that do not take into consideration precipitation and need, have to be redone.
Thank you. And the next speaker?
My name is Otto Hoekstra. I live on Riverside. Just a quick question. Is there federal infrastructure grants tied to approval and installation of these water meters?
Yes.
Okay. So my city council is being bribed with federal money. Our tax money.
We're always being bribed.
No, seriously.
We're always being told
It's
what
a
to
carrot
do.
that's hanging, and the money is taxpayer money. That's, you know, to me, a simple question like that, and I can't believe that you know, like that kind of incentive with taxpayer money to actually bribe our city council.
Well, no, and the way they say it is carefully worded.
Carefully worded,
Yeah,
but it comes down to the same thing.
Right,
Just
they're
like
saying
Doug
that
Allen
if
was
you're
saying
not
that.
conserving, if you're not practicing environmental conservation and water management, that you go to the bottom of the list. Well, the bottom of the list never gets funded. So, you know, that's the kind of wording that we're hearing at the table.
I would like to see a little bit of water management at Big White. They want almost 300 million gallons, mostly during the summer. And it looks like it's been approved from what I can see driving
For a
by.
golf course?
Two golf courses, a water park, and they want to build snowmaking facilities.
Story hotel they're building.
And from getting water from the most endangered river in BC.
Right, and my understanding is with skiing on a downhill course at this point, there is not a lot of activity up on Big White, but there is the Kettle River Water Study, and Graham Watt was here earlier today. That's the man that really needs to deal with this along with the politicians. So yes, we are concerned about the freshet in Big White.
Okay, those are just my points, but I want to...
Thank you. Okay, this is going well. And identifying ourselves?
My name is Murray Rennie and I live on 17th Street. I moved here in November of 1999, and at that time my neighbor said his water pressure in his house was 100 psi. At the present time it's about 60 psi. And there's only been one house built on that street during that time. So, pardon me, two houses. Where's the other 40 psi going? That's one question.
Okay, can we answer that one quickly?
Yes, you may.
Is there a pressure problem on Riverside Drive?
This is on 17th Street behind the A&W.
Behind the A&W.
Mr. Mayor, not that I know of at this point, we'd have to research that question because that would come back down to the modeling of the system.
Right.
So that would relate to friction losses in the pipe based on the age and deterioration of the pipe. The smoother the inside of the pipe, the better it is for conveyance. But I mean, there's so many factors, that would only be a small piece, so it would take quite a bit of...
Could be leakage.
Pardon me?
Could be leakage.
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. I mean, there's be so many pieces that
Right.
I could give a general answer, but without finding...
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, we would have to look at that closer.
Okay. The second question I have is, how many places are there that will require water meters? How many residentials?
1,800?
Right now, I can't remember the number, I believe it's between 1,800 and 2,000 units.
Right, 18 to 2,000.
Third question, and this is my last question. What is the estimated cost per unit to have it installed? And does that work out to $1.3 million on your grant, or is it more or less?
We're actually, I think, coming in a little lower, but we're waiting for bids, so we really can't be clear.
Well, you must have some sort of an estimate as to what it's going to cost.
We figured 1.3.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, and to be clear, it is not a grant that we have, it's the gas tax funding that we have. We've applied for a grant in the past and been denied, but this is the federal gas tax funding that we get annually that's being used for installation of water meters. It's not a grant.
Could we
free money
just have a
call it what you
clarification
want.
as to how much money comes in annually on the federal? Because that question was asked this morning, and I would have hoped that you would have had
Federal
an answer.
gas tax money coming in.
Yes. Did we receive $1.3 million of gas tax money
Just hold on.
this year?
So, Mr. Mayor, approximately $220,000 is what we receive each year.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Gas tax funding.
Good day.
Good evening.
Larry Podmore.
Hello, Larry.
How are you doing?
Good.
Okay, when is the most amount of water used? Is it in the summertime or wintertime?
Summertime.
Have you ever driven down Highway number 3 in the summertime?
Many times.
How much water is wasted? Putting water on flowers, dripping out of the bottom, going nowhere. Is that in your 720 liters per person?
No.
Are you sure?
I am.
How do you get that number?
I got it from Sheriff. In fact, that is part of the water allocation that the city has. We're getting it from our own water source.
Your
And no,
water
it wouldn't
storage,
it
water,
wouldn't be in
everything.
the average that we are.
That's what you're pulling out of the river?
This is water we're pulling out of wells.
Yes, out of the wells. So she knows how much water everybody uses every day.
Sorry, Sheriff.
It's in the demand management plan.
Okay?
The calculations are in the demand management plan that was released in 2011. They have the ratios for the consumption of city water. I can look it up here right
Okay.
But you're not putting it in what you guys use or what the city is wasting.
Okay, can you make it one question and then...
No,
leave
no,
it
no,
if
no.
there are
I've got
other
about
questions?
3 or 4 questions.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
Okay. Would you please leave the podium?
No. I'm a taxpayer. You're a servant to the people.
Yes, and I'm
These
also
are
the
the
chairman
people.
of this group,
These are the people.
the mayor of this town, and you're being asked to sit down.
Why?
Because
I'm
at
asking
this point in time,
questions.
we've limited the questions and you're abusing your position.
You mean
I said
you're
ask one
kicking
question.
me out, but you're letting everybody else ask more than one question.
We were trying to get everybody to ask one question and let everybody ask that question.
You can follow the proper process, but the thing is, if you can adjourn the meeting, you ask the council if there's not going to conduct himself respectfully.
Okay.
We do have a respectful workplace
You know,
policy.
we have a full agenda of things to do this evening, and I would expect after our final speakers that we answer the questions that were brought forward by the group today, Mr. Treveri, and that we ask council for a motion if they're so desiring to put a motion on the table. If not, then we've dealt with it and given you some answer here.
That's what we would expect. If you were requesting that you put a motion for it.
I will ask council on your behalf.
And so the people
Yes.
here and the 500 people that signed the petition will have an idea whether you're listening to the voice of the people or not. Yes,
Or we
definitely.
disagree, but yes, I think you deserve an answer for your efforts.
Exactly. I hope that we will get an answer.
Okay. Would you sit down, please, Mr. Padmore?
So, you don't want to listen to me.
Unless you can make it a question and not rant about things, great, ask a question.
I can ask a question. Am I going to get an honest answer?
Okay, that, you know, I think we've had enough, and I'm telling you right now, I adjourn the meeting. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to call the meeting back to order. And I do so. We're back in committee, or in regular council. Councillor Wishag, or Councillor Kendel would like to ask a question of Mr. Treveri, and then I would like to put the question to council.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just for my own clarification, and I'm trying to understand, I've heard a lot of concerns from the public. Right now, the entire population of the city that's hooked up to the water service pays...
May I just...
Yeah, absolutely.
So I can hear you. I'm sorry, I can't hear what you're saying.
Yeah, everyone in the city now that's hooked up to water pays a flat rate for their water service every year. And that, in essence, covers the cost of operating the system. For my own personal clarification, whether the city bills you, and I'm just going to say $100 a year to use your water, and that covers the cost of operating the system, or you're paying by a metered amount to cover the cost of the system, I'm just trying to understand what the huge difference in those two scenarios is.
Okay. My concern is more an ethical concern than and a moral concern than the concern for the amount of water. Look, my wife and I, just two of us, right? We conserve water. We don't waste water. Yeah, I garden, but I do it very, very prudently. I don't waste water. Okay, I do the best that I can to maintain my property because it maintains the property value, that sort of thing. I just don't like the idea of using water as a commodity. When you start putting meters on water, it becomes a commodity. Yes. And you know, right now the federal government is putting pressure on the large municipalities to enter into a partnership with, as I pointed out, okay, with private corporations for utilities, right? Now, that means that those communities are going to lose control of their utilities because all of a sudden you have full cost recovery, right? Because we operate on a partial cost recovery because you rely on grants from you know, as you're applying for grants. We operate on a partial cost recovery. They're going to operate on a full cost recovery, plus they're going to have to make a profit. If I'm an investor, I'm not going to invest in community infrastructure if there's nothing for me to gain, right? Dollar-wise. And that's what they're going to do. Now, once you start putting a price on a life necessity, you see, we have no choice. We have to drink water, right? We have no choice. What are you going to do if an individual cannot pay his water bill? Are you going to cut off his water? Are you going to cut off the water of the couple that I was talking about? You're not. Obviously, you're not. You know, I know you people, right? We live within the community. I know you're not that cruel. Your intentions are very, very good. But tomorrow, everybody's being pushed to put on water meters. Tomorrow, what's to say that the government isn't going to go ahead and say, look, City of Grand Forks, City of Castlegar, City of Roslyn, City of Nelson, and so on, all of you guys, it's costing you way too much, more than what we want to provide to operate your infrastructure, right? Find yourself a private partner, right? Find some corporation, turn over your infrastructure to that corporation to manage, right? And they always tell you, but you'll have the control, right? Well, just look at the control in terms of some of those private-public partnerships. In some cases, they have no choice. Port Mann Bridge is a perfect example. That was put up private-public partnership. What's happened? Well, right away there's tolls because it has to be paid for. not only does it have to be paid for, full cost recovery, it has to be paid for so that the investors make some money, because otherwise why would they go into that? So that's my big concern.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Treveri. And Councillor Krog, do you really need to ask another question at this point?
Yes.
Can you keep it shorter?
Questions
Mr. Kendel
and comments. A couple of things. Yeah, I'm conflicted by some of the questions or some of the statements that are brought forward. And some are that if I don't use a lot of water, or I have a larger family that uses more water, that's not fair. But then it's the inequality that why does the person that doesn't use water pay today exactly what hang on, I haven't finished. I haven't finished.
I guess I should stay up here. I'll answer the question.
I haven't finished.
Councillor Krog, can you make it pointed and short? Because we've been 2 hours today already.
Well,
on this topic.
Well, maybe I could answer this question, then you can answer the other question.
And then I'll finish.
Councillor Krog, I use water. That's something. And on the surface, user pay system seems really, really fair, right? But if you're going to have user pay, then you have to have user pay for all the amenities in Grand Forks. I don't use a pool, and don't get me wrong, I believe that we should have a pool, okay? I don't use the baseball field, okay, at all. I don't use the aquatic center at all. I use the library. You try to take away my library, I'll choke you. Okay? I don't use many amenities, yet I pay for those amenities. Okay, through my taxes, I pay for those amenities, right? They're not. Don't tell me that the pittance that you take in at the aquatic center or that you take in at the arena pays for the full operation of those facilities. It doesn't. There's just no way. Okay, so if you're going to have a user pay fee, then you have to have, it has to be equal. Okay, you're taking away my recreation. I am a gardener. That's where I get my physical exercise. That's where I keep my mind active and so on. It's my recreation. That's what I do as recreation. Not only recreation, but enjoyment and all sorts of things, right? So basically, that's the reason why if you have a user pay system like that, then it would also make it stand to reason that you have a tax flat rate. I don't mind being taxed more than my neighbor because I know it goes into the facilities and so on or whatever. However, right? As soon as you start taxing me more, then I say, well, why should I, if it's a user pay system, if everything has to be a user pay system, why don't we all pay the same taxes? Okay, because any facilities that I use, I'm paying for them, right? So why should my taxes be more than someone else's taxes? There's absolutely no reason for it. Okay?
Okay.
You have a second question?
Councillor Krog?
Yeah, not all questions, just some comments too. We've heard a lot. We've heard a fair amount from the previous meeting. I really liked a lot of the concerns and the validity of those concerns. Some I'm not 100% buying into. I am a citizen. I pay water, right? As sitting at this table, I am not part of any global conspiracy, any government conspiracy, anything to start utilizing or saying that people are coming to take our water or to sell our water. It costs us X dollars to pull it out of the ground and to take it to my house. That's what I pay for. Now, Bob just used a number. I'll use the same number, $100. Let's say that's it. If I pay $100 no matter what, or I pay $100, or maybe I only pay $80 because I conserve. Or maybe I decide I'm just going to water the hell out of everything, and I end up paying $120. To me, I'm not sure where it's coming from. I did want to mention the petition. This is probably the best petition that I've ever seen presented in all my years on council. Okay? Because of the work that went into it, the fact that you kind of vetted it and said, yes, these people are here and we're not getting somebody to sign, and we crossed out Fred Flintstone, right? I don't know, he could be in town. And that was the best ever effort, rather than just the random ones. I just wish that it had been brought to the city for their look at before you went to the public. There are mistakes in it. No, just to say, okay, like everybody's pointing out to our typo from 214 to 215. So it should all be pulled back because we put 215 in by typo. Well, it says in the first part, third button down or fourth button down, the majority of council members will not have meters because they live outside the city. That's not true.
Okay, but
hang on.
Councillor Krog, please.
Hang on. There have been no town hall meetings to discuss the pros and cons of water installation. I'm looking at an ad here that Councillor Wyers was talking about in 2011, and it says the pros and cons of water metering. So if I had seen that before it went out, I would have said, well, technically that's not correct. So if I sign it based on that information, which isn't correct, then does that negate the validity? It's not like I'm just pointing stuff out. Like I still.
Mr. Chair, I don't think that we're going.
One more. Yeah. Okay. I look at it from a cost perspective. That reservoir that Mayor Taylor talked about was $6.1 million to build. Right? If we end up conserving water, and we don't have to build that, so we don't spend the 6.1. Hang on. Okay. I'm not asking questions. No. We heard this morning from Graham Watt, whose credentials are way more than any other person in this room, I can guarantee, when it comes to water, and he's speaking in favor of it, and in speaking of favor of the consumption of it, or the protection of it. When we look at, right now, we pump out water and we give it to everybody to use, and it costs X dollars. If we don't use as much, guess what? It doesn't cost as much to pull it from the ground. If you have a pump, and I think Doug said, that's run at 5,500 RPM to yank water out of the ground, if you've ever driven your car and it'll go up that high, do you like driving it that high? No, you drop it lower. So if we're only doing half the power to the pumps, we're saving money on the infrastructure, the electricity, all of that, plus we're protecting the aquifer, and I would argue against the water going back.
We could get on a real
debate. And I appreciate you not responding to that, so that we can
I won't respond because I would have been able, or I should have been able to respond to it at an open meeting earlier. No.
This is
putting water meters in is adding infrastructure. What we all want, if we, like the idea of conserving water so that we can buy time and finance things, that's not a bad thing. So if we need to conserve water to be eligible for grants, why can't we try to do it a different way without spending $1.3 million?
Please sit down.
Okay.
Yes, I do. I've asked, and
any other
Councillor Shagan says he has a motion ready for council, and what I'm saying is that we should give an answer to this group tonight. Are you motioning to?
I'll read it. And I'll just thank this group for coming forward. Like Councillor Krog said, a lot of work has been put into this, and by far it is the best petition I have personally also ever seen. In that, I believe every individual here, as well as every individual who signed that petition, deserves an answer, so they don't have to be strung along any further. If the answer is yes, it's yes. If it's no, it's no. So, with that being said, I would like to put the motion forward. Be it resolved that the City of Grand Forks put a moratorium or a halt on the universal water meter program, including installation of water meters, pending further dialogue with the community.
And is there a seconder to that? Seeing no seconder to the motion, the answer is that council is not agreeing to that motion, so that is your answer.
Maybe we should wait until we've heard from everyone.
Did you call
No.
for a seconder, Mr.?
I called for a seconder twice and there was no seconder.
Well, election time. See you then.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chaudhary. It's been an unusual day, and I appreciate all the patience that people have shown.
On behalf of my group and the concerned citizens that signed our petition, I'd like to thank you for hearing us. We disagree with your decision, but it's your right to make the decision. We live in a democratic society. We'll go by your decision. We still would like to continue to be consulted, particularly in terms of the rates, how you're going to establish those particular rates, what type of water meters you're going to put in, whether it's absolutely necessary to put the water meters in the homes, or whether you're going to put in pit meters. If I as a citizen, doesn't want a water meter in my house, will you put a pit meter, and what happens if that meter? There are all kinds of questions that I still have in regard to this, and I would hope that before you go ahead and just charge into putting in those water meters, that those questions be clearly delineated.
And your name stands as a member of the consulting community group?
No. You didn't ask my motion. I'm a member. I've always been a member of the consulting group because I'm a citizen of Grand Forks and a taxpayer.
I think your involvement in setting tax rates and being involved in those things you just brought up would be very useful. Thank you. Okay, Council. We are down to Council reports.
Oh, are we there?
Yes, we are. Are we not? We are down to
I may as well start, Mr.
Councillor Shagan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I've said more than enough today. So I have no council report.
Councillor O'Doherty.
The last 2 weeks I've been involved with
Yeah.
And I want to thank the staff for the great job they have done for the family. Good attendance downtown.
An amazing job.
I went to the Aquatic Center and to the arena, and there was a big attendance there.
We have a lot more kids than we thought we did in this town.
So that's my report.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And Councillor Wyers.
Well, Your Worship, I'll give you my report with FCM Head Start for Young Women. The Grand Forks group, we met for the third session on January 31st. And the FCM project coordinator, Melissa Newitt, will be visiting Grand Forks on Thursday, January 13th.
Yeah.
So she'll be here for 2 days. And she will be attending the Girls Rising film presentation that is hosted by the Boundaries Resource Center. They have provided our meeting facility for us. Excuse me, I'm giving my council report. Thank you. So secondly, with the Head Start for Young Women's Group and the film presentation on Thursday, Melissa will meet with the girls on Friday at 4 o'clock, and we will be concluding our interviews and our needs assessment with the young ladies. Following that, on February 5th, I attended a joint meeting of the Boundary Museum Society and the Grand Forks Duke of War Milling Society and Venture Grand Forks to begin the 2014 planning for the operation of the historic flour mill on Mill Road.
Yes.
So the first year saw 1,440 visitors sign the guest book. That's what we have in the guest book. and the production of 4.5 and 10 kilogram bags of the whole wheat and the white flour.
Which they just got into producing again?
We just did the white flour just because there was substantial repairs that had to be done to the process for the white flour. So they do have the white and the whole wheat now in the 4.5 and the big 10 kilogram bags. There is a specialty line of rye and tetracale wheat grains, but those are only produced in the 4.5 kilogram bags due to the higher cost of production. So that group has, that involves the Boundary Museum Society, as I stated, the Grand Forks Doukhobor Milling Society, and Venture Grand Forks are part of that community enhancement for tourism and business development. On February the 6th, the Grand Forks Flying Association met, and they have started planning their third annual Appreciation Day fly-in that will take place on Sunday, August the 24th at the Grand Forks Airport. Notably this year, and we're just tossing around the idea as a member of the club, as a pilot, the 75th celebration of the Harvard in Canada. So we're looking to attract the Okanagan warbirds back to our event this year to give us some thrilling arrivals and departures. This is not an air show. It is a fly-in. So of course, our popular Elks pancake breakfast will be the main attraction, and the opportunity to do static displays. So there are a number of military static displays that we've applied for with the CFB Winnipeg office, and we'll keep you apprised of that as it promotes. We've also are developing a website at this time and a Facebook page, and this will also tie in with the promotion of the aerodrome facility that we have here for general aviation, and as well we are establishing a database of flying clubs and pilots and general aviation users across Canada for this purpose to market our fly-in. On February the 8th, I took part in the opening ceremonies for Family Day down at in the chilly 11 o'clock hour on Market Avenue. And I have to say I enjoyed many of the family events that we had. I was really impressed. Where did our audience?
Even the press left.
Well, how disappointing. Because I always feel my reports are very important because it's the work that I do in this community, and I'd like to share it with everybody. Anyhow, so our Family Day was a huge success, and I did manage to attend the family skate at the arena and had an opportunity to. Notably, I saw 6 senior gentlemen out there skating, and I was so, it just warmed my heart that this opportunity was there for them, and because I knew a couple of them were struggling with being on blades, but it was heartwarming, not only to see the children, but these 6 gentlemen that were going around the ring. So just to remind everybody that the Boundary Women's Resource Center film, Girl Rising, on Thursday, February the 13th, is at 7 p.m. at the Gem Theatre. It is a fundraiser in support of our local Women's Resource Center and the good work they do in our community. And it's an inspiring documentary from Academy Award-nominated director Richard E. Robbins. So it's the journey around the globe to witness the strength of the human spirit and the power of education to change the world. And you will see the story of 9 ladies from around the world. So it's very empowering. And that's my report.
Thank you very much.
When is this? The movie picture?
Girl Rising.
When?
Thursday. At the Gem Theatre, 7 p.m.
Thursday, 7 p.m.
Can I ask you one question here? Is the flour mill going to continue to be a welcome center coming into town in the coming year?
Well, that's between, that's what they're working on, the 3 partnerships.
Right.
The Venture Grand Forks took the...
That's right, it was Venture.
Yeah, it was Venture Grand Forks. They took the opportunity because the Boundary Museum Society had not received the number of summer students they needed to run all three areas, because they have the museum as well. And
Yeah.
so they took up that slack there. So it's dependent on grant applications, and it's Venture Grand Forks. I think it's their goal to continue if they need.
Great, thanks. Councillor Shagan, you forgot something?
No, I just wanted to comment on that further. With it being close this time of year and doing a lot of work up at the USUC, contract work up there, the number of people that stop me when I'm working to ask, why isn't it open? Why isn't it there?
At the flour mill?
At the flour mill, because it's just across, so they'll drive around to make sure it's the right building and they'll ask questions.
Yeah.
And I'm just amazed by the number of people that stop, and all friendly.
The word is spreading.
Yeah, no, it's great on that side of town. I watch them come and they go, and and when it's not open, they don't complain, but they just question why it's not open.
Well, there's a sign there that they can pick up flour, and it's just too
right?
expensive for the operation of it during the winter months to have it open.
That big sign on the way into town, I think it's a good draw. It's well done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Kendel.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've been either fortunate or unfortunate, but in the last 2 weeks, all of my committee responsibilities are at the end of this week, so I don't have anything to report.
Well rested. Councillor Krog.
Couple of quick items and then this issue. Attended Family Day, was awesome, right? And good turnout. Attended the Scotch tasting that was hosted by Rotary, and that was pretty awesome. I don't drink Scotch, so I wasn't partaking of the Scotch.
I was there and it was awesome.
Yes, and
The Scotch on the event?
yes, he had the Scotch, and so did Councillor Smith. Right, but it was a well-attended event. They're looking at making some changes to it that would make it even more encompassing. We had people actually get dressed up to go that made a night of it, right? Rather than just show up and drink. Like it was actually pretty cool. And so that was that. And now I had sent out, there was a question at the last meeting, because I said that I had a proposal for resolution AKBLG and then to UBCM. I sent it out and was hoping to hear back. But basically it concerns e-bikes. In BC right now, you can buy it, you have to be 16, you have to wear a helmet, so bicycle helmet, and that's it. You don't need insurance, you don't need registration, you don't need any training whatsoever. So if you rode a bike 30 years ago, you could hop on it, and I'm not the only one that's seen them wobbling down the road. You can see the fear and inexperience in them. And I did a lot of research between that time and now. My concerns, they can go 32 kilometers an hour. They're silent. It takes them 9 meters to stop. So what I found throughout the internet all over the world, and a lot from Canada, is the conflict between just regular bicycles. And there are a couple of different types of e-bikes. There's the one that have the large tires that look like bicycles. And then there's the smaller scooter ones. What I've witnessed in town is some people that ride them, I think they believe they're motorcycles, so that they're allowed to ride in the middle of the road. I've seen them ride up and down either side of the road, which is contradictory to anything. I guess my concern is liability. If you get hit by one and they're not required to carry insurance, who's going to end up paying the damage? Now, my research with the insurance companies and everything, that it may be covered under your household insurance. If you get a rider that specifically says that you're going to be riding this e-bike, which could weigh 200 kilograms, easy, or you could get a separate license. So my resolution kind of, I think, encompassed it. I know it's rough. There was, Councillor Wyers did some research, and she found when it comes to pedals, and even Staff Sergeant Harrison was talking about some of their concerns. I don't see it specifically as a Grand Forks concern. I see it as an overall provincial concern. Now, the Supreme Court of British Columbia said no pedals. Guess what? It's not an e-bike anymore because you can't control them as easy. They have small tires. You can't swerve like you can on a bicycle, right? And the judge actually said, and so I'm shortening this quite a bit, so the judge also said the province should review the regulations surrounding electric bikes. I'm not looking to ban e-bikes. I actually think they're great. There's some benefits to them. And if you go through, I did send out a pretty large email with some of the stuff I'd found, and you notice it doesn't matter whether it's Brantford or Toronto or even Vancouver, that they all talk about the same thing. They're talking about the conflicts between regular bikes, they're talking about conflicts between pedestrians, they're talking about conflicts between cars, right? And the potential for injury. So my motion, or actually it's the sharing road, so I'm shooting through all this stuff. In Brampton, Ontario, I think, a lady got hit by a car. She's got a $1,000 deductible. She got hit, her car got hit by an e-bike. And the person got sent to the hospital. They don't have any insurance, so the insurance corporation told them that, guess what, you're on your own for your $1,000 deductible, or you can sue the person. Mm-hmm. Right? The other thing that she found, and it says that even the council is concerned about it, but their Sergeant Lee said that there were 8 bicycle collisions, including 10% up. Total accidents. But she said a bigger part was it actually pulled out an ambulance, 4 police cars, and detained 5 witnesses for up to 2 hours for this. So it had an impact on the infrastructure of the city, right? Let's see, they had the impaired guy run into a car, they had an impaired guy run into his thing. Again, they're circumventing it. Benefits, environmentally friendly, reduced commute times, increased mobility. A benefit is no insurance license or registration, inexpensive alternate mode of transportation. Concerns are exactly what I stated. The lack of any kind of training, the lack of any kind of insurance. So what I wanted to see would be through this motion that the province looks at it, right? But we're not saying that they have to do this. But the bike costs about anywhere from $800 to $1,800 for small ones. A helmet, a motorcycle helmet, is anywhere from $40 to $400. A one-time registration fee, just like I got on my trailer, or I have to put on my snowmobile, could be $40. Insurance can be as low as $40 a year, but we have these people that aren't getting the insurance. A safety course, just like a boat pro course, $35, $40, and it renews your rights on the road, and this is what you're supposed to do, and this is what you're not supposed to do. And I have at the last a little quote, financial security and being alive, because I also have stats about fatalities, right? Priceless. And Jim mentioned it, or Staff Sergeant mentioned it this morning, that we don't have the statistics because the province doesn't keep statistics. The country doesn't keep specific statistics. Only communities that have said, hey, we want to separate these out. How are we going to do that? So hopefully you had a chance to look at it. Here's the resolution.
Councillor Krog, I didn't see it.
Okay.
He sent it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Some time back, it's been going back and forth.
I sent the resolution out, but I sent more stuff out after Chair had sent some stuff out.
What part of first class was that in?
Council,
I think. Okay.
Neil sent his
February 3rd.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, Neil.
Yeah.
I didn't read it.
Yeah, and that's why I'm trying to paraphrase. But anyways, my resolution, and I don't know, is it supposed to say UBCM, AKBO? Okay, anyways, whereas the use of motor-assisted cycles, MACs, that's what they call them, or e-bikes, is becoming more commonplace across British Columbia, and concerns have been raised regarding the operation of the e-bikes concerning the areas of safety, licensing, insurance, and training. As of today, You can purchase and operate an e-bike and not required to have any of that. And whereas these vehicles operate on public roads, and there has been an increase in accidents and fatalities associated with these bikes as they go, and as I said before, 32 kilometers, they can weigh over 200 kilograms, and that's just estimated a skinny rider. Stopping distance, 9 meters. The minute they hit their brakes, they still got at least 27 feet, right? And they don't maneuver well, and they're silent. Most people with complaints, it's because they come flying up behind them. They dart in and out of traffic. Okay, sorry, I should. Or pedestrian that could present real injury and liability issues. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the City of Grand Forks, or whatever it should say, requests the AKBLG or whoever to petition the provincial government to review with respect to e-bikes in the following 4 points: that they be registered with ICBC, that's theft, that the owner be required to take some kind of a training course, and that the owner has liability insurance through their homeowner policy or a separate policy. And this is all recommended by the insurance brokers of BC, Ontario, everybody. And we also call for defining power-assisted bicycles as some form of a motor vehicle so that suspended drivers are not able to use a power-assisted bicycle to circumvent their license suspension.
Okay, and are you looking for us to approve that going forward tonight?
Yeah, I was hoping to get feedback where people said, oh, that's too wordy and I need to cut it down, or I don't like it, or I do like it.
You can modify it. I think the concept is what we're deciding on, and I think it's a good item to bring forward. Councillor Wyers.
Oh, yeah. Cost would be minimal. Sorry.
No, sorry. I like the concept. It is a little wordy, but that could be all straightened out. But is that the same thing as a scooter?
Yeah, that's what I got one go.
Because scooters don't have to be registered either.
Yes, a scooter has to be registered because it's over 500 watts.
Oh, is that right?
Yes,
is that
and it is licensed and insured and everything. These e-bikes look like scooters.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
Right, that's what it is. And you know, they can't quite go as fast. Oh, all you have to do is switch out the battery and you can crank it up to 45 or 50 clicks. Just by changing out the battery.
Okay.
I fully support it, absolutely.
Councillor Wyers.
Yep.
Well, I appreciate all the work that you have put into this. I just find that we're under the gun here right now because resolutions did close yesterday at AKBLG.
On a holiday.
They are already circulating the resolutions that they've received at AKBLG. And I think we need some more time on this, Councillor Krog. And in light of what we are experiencing here right now and what is before AKBLG and the resolutions I see, I would like us to not pursue this particular one at this time and maybe bring it forward next year when we have more time to spend on it, where we can come to a conclusion.
What about straight to UBC?
No, it goes to AKBLG first.
Well, I know, but they do accept them directly from municipalities.
Well,
if it seems too late for this,
there's 12 resolutions that have been submitted for the region.
Just 12? City of Grand Forks submitted 6 ones.
Yes, we're known for some of our stupidity.
What?
Okay, problem solved there. What are we going to do with this? Councillor Wyers, you don't think it would be appropriate for it to go?
Not when I see what's before AKBLG. And I'm only looking at what is facing our communities today in the big picture, and that is the infrastructure, the grant funding. They're so big, and we don't have enough information. Even the RCMP and ICBC, I don't see it as a strong resolution for considering the demands that are being putting on our local governments today. I mean, I see one here right now from Review Community Charters Regional District Governance Structure from Nelson.
Okay, without going into all of them at this point.
No, but they've all been circulated to
right, so Councillor Krog, can you respond to that, then Councillor Wyers?
Yeah, just a couple of things. It doesn't take away from anything. I've sat at sessions and we've gone through tons of resolutions. It would then go to the floor and people could say, no, I want more information. So we'll hold it for a year. I just don't want to get run over. Right?
Okay.
I don't want to hit anybody.
You would still like to proceed with it?
Yeah, I would like to proceed with it, and if then they don't accept it because it's past the time frame, even though it was on a holiday,
gotcha,
then it has a better standing to go forward to UBCM. But we don't know what the rest of the province
all right, so
feels, but I can guarantee it would hit the floor.
Councillor Wyers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, well, I suppose Councillor Krog kind of just echoed what I was going to say there. We could at least try. And if it doesn't work on RDKB, then we could just try to send it to UBC. And if it's accepted and it's discussed, then so be it, kind of thing. And I think it is an issue. It may not be to the same extent that, let's say, dealing with the community charter and the governance structure of regional districts, but I'm paying extra on my car insurance every month to cover the uninsured motorist or underinsured rider right now. So that's money out of my pocket that should be paid by somebody else. Every single month I'm paying more, and I think that is a concern because I'm not the only one. I have to pick that up. I have to pick up the cost for somebody else's stupidity, essentially.
Councillor Krog, would you put that as a motion on the floor that we could discuss?
Yes, and it is, just speaking to the motion, even before I get a secondary, if I get one, would be it's to request the provincial government look at it.
To review it.
To review it, to look at all the information that's out there and come to a conclusion that, no, we like the status quo, or we think this would be a good idea.
Okay.
So it's not us doing the work.
Wanting to move this forward?
I'll move the resolution go forward.
And a seconder for that, Councillor Wyers. Discussion? Councillor Krog.
Just a comment. Personally, I'd like to see what the statistics are for a regular pedal bike that has all of the same issues. Same weight restrictions, can go the same speed, has the same connotations in an accident as an e-bike. How many accidents are there on bicycles versus e-bikes, and is the e-bike issue that big an issue versus just a regular pedal bike? I would think there'd be as many accidents if somebody ran into a car. They have no insurance, they don't have a helmet, they need to abide by the rules of the road, and I don't know whether the e-bike is that far removed other than it has an electric motor from a regular bike.
They're wider and they're heavier, and there's been a lot of conflict between regular bicycles. They have a small wheelbase, I think it's 350, and a regular bicycle, if you've ever been on a walking path and a bike comes up behind you, right, it can go around and it's gone, like they're maneuverable. These things aren't, right? And the riders, right, like I worried about that too when I looked at it and I thought, is this right? But they're increasing.
Yes, they
are. At Costco, $800.
Yeah.
Right? More. So you are going to see more stuff.
Can I call for a question here? And I support the motion. I think that there are more of them out there, and some of the details of what Councillor Kendel's asking we'll find out. But in principle, I think we should go ahead with this. Okay, we have a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? Do you want it recorded?
Yes, please.
Yes. Okay, and I would like to combine my councillor report and... how are you getting that? There's a lot of work to do on that. Your document, your resolution.
Yeah.
Councillor Krog is going to shape it up and send it in, right?
Sure.
Well, it has to go through.
Yeah, that's was...
It should be sent in to us and then we'd go through the steps to finish it up.
Yeah, so it's already...
That's the step of it.
But the deadline's passed, so whether we...
And that's the thing too.
You can send it in and they'll get back to you whether they accept it or not. It's a late resolution.
Point out it was a holiday.
Okay, Councillor Krog, that's on you to send it in, but we support it.
Yeah.
All right, my report. First of all, just a couple of comments. I've been talking a lot about the Family Day, and it was an amazing event.
Yeah, it was cool.
Simply put, I don't think people realize we had that many kids in this town. You see them on, on the parade route, but man, it was a turnout. I think that every kid out there was out in town. So again, excellent work all the way around by everybody who was involved, Sarah and all the group.
Yeah,
Okay,
awesome.
a couple things on the regional level. The PEP meeting, personnel and the personnel committee, policy and personnel is meeting in Grand Forks on Wednesday. Got that? That's tomorrow. And it's open to the public. The regional district meetings, nobody comes to them, but we go in camera and kick people out. But if we're not in camera, it's an open meeting. And it's on at 2 p.m. at the regional district office. Now, also at the regional district office on the 13th, that's on Thursday, is the electoral services area, East End. The services area is at 4:30. Again, that's open to your sit-in if you want. It's mostly about the east side issues. But the Environment Committee is on at 6:30 in Grand Forks, and a great opportunity. Councillor Wyers usually makes it.
I have the head start.
Okay, well, anybody who wants to attend those two meetings, those are two opportunities. And tonight, if we get out of here on time, we have the 6:30 meeting at the Senior Center, which again is really important for us to stay in tune with that. We've got to make this relationship with the region work better. That's my report, and I'll accept a motion to accept Councillor reports. Councillor Krog, second Councillor O'Doherty. All those in favor? Okay, what do we got? Okay, we have, moving up from this morning's Committee of the Whole, we need a resolution to confirm the liquor licensing application support for Happy Days 50s Diner. Councillor Kendel, second Councillor Wyers. Any discussion?
Happy Days are here again.
All those in favor?
There will be none.
Opposed? Carried. And the next item is the Grand Forks and District Fall Fair. Council received a letter from Mr. McIver, and what we have here is a number of things that our staff have to work out with the Fall Fair, and so we're receiving a letter from Mr. McIver in our formal meeting here for discussion and decision purposes. But I have a feeling at this point that really the discussion will have to follow further reports from our staff. So receiving the letter, Councillor O'Doherty, seconded by Councillor Krog. All those in favor? Carried. And we are down to media and questions from the public. Oh, did that not? Oh, I'm sorry, hold it. Hold it. Hold it.
I got my hopes up.
The only one that you gave me. Okay.
It's only 8 hours.
There is one more item here, and it's the water park that we dealt with this morning. I'm sorry, I should have been more excited about that. Resolve that council determines to support option number 3 as per the Committee of the Whole February 11th meeting with regard to the Grand Forks Rotary presentation of a spray water park with the provision of supplying grant support letters and by funding from Slag Fund Reserve, and that the spray park be located at City Park. So we're defining that we could go for slag money or other grants.
Yeah.
Councillor Wyers, Councillor O'Doherty seconds it.
And we'll put a meter on it.
Put a meter on it.
Register for what?
All those in favor? That's a great one. Okay, thank you very much. I'm letting us forget that. And back to the public. Les, what do you got for us?
What does it matter now? Trade down.
I think we should get royalties on today's meeting if you're going to cut and paste.
Okay, going backwards in time, the 3 things I have to say. First off, I'm glad to hear that you're championing the e-bike thing, and I'm glad you didn't call them scooters, because apparently the thing at UBCN, they called them scooters, and the newspaper was going, what, are they nuts?
See, I didn't know
and
that.
what, with statistics, all you have to do is be riding a bicycle, or think about your grandchild riding a bicycle on the street the way they should when you're faced with somebody who's obviously lost their license due to not caring about the rules on one of these bikes that goes faster than they could ever pedal their butts if they had to pedal a real bike. It weighs far more than them and a rider on an old bike. But they don't care. When they come down on the wrong side of the street, they don't care because they don't care. This is the refuge of the people who lose their licenses for cause, because they don't need to have a registration license for anything, and they're out there on the road and they're a hazard. Okay, first off, that's it. In this province, who actually has the power to set a value on water? Do you guys have that power at all? Does anybody have that power?
On the water itself, not delivering it, but the water itself.
No, I'm saying, they're talking about valuation of water, and that's a bad thing. Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but...
Didn't they recently start to charge a company for taking water from the aquifer?
In Vancouver, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm just curious, is that a power that is within the purview of a municipal government, or is that a provincial level thing?
I think it'd either be provincial or federal.
Mr. Allen.
Mr. Mayor, we don't control the resources of the province when it comes to the allocation of that. We apply for licenses. The province controls land consumption. We control land use. Provincial bodies of water, minerals, and those types of things are all controlled by the province.
That's what I thought. So you have, they have, their fears are not being placed at the right level. But the third thing, and I wanted to say this when they were all here, but it was busy and everything else, and because I knew this would happen. So I'll say it to the folks at home if anybody tunes into this. It's really too bad that these people don't come out on a regular basis. I've been to more council meetings than anybody sitting here except for maybe you and Mr. And I don't see them coming out like this until there's some issue that they're afraid of, and then they just want you to put on the brakes. And that's an unfortunate thing, because it's participative democracy. If you really care about these issues, I'm talking to the people who were here earlier who are not here now, come on and run against these people here. If you're worried that some future council might tie your sewer rates to your water usage rates, get on council and make that not happen. I mean, it's ridiculous. There's nobody here. There's literally nobody here except the media. Well, Christine's been on council and it's just the public seems to not care until, oh, we're going to run around with our panties in a knot. I mean, I'm sorry, because as a media person, that's obviously a failing on my part to help you get the message across.
Can't say panties.
Then you got to edit that part.
But that's it. I mean, you know,
Thanks, Les.
it's sickening. Okay, there you go.
And further from the audience, anyone? Craig?
Well, I have
No?
a very bad case of bronchitis. So I think
Then you'll tell Roger what the first day of work initiation thing is?
I can't wait for going home.
Motion to adjourn.
Wait till we bring up Walmart.